So power rankings are a thing now. Um, it's funny. I didn't intend for this to become a thing really. But they're a thing, and I enjoy doing it. So this isn't a matter of me doing something that I don't enjoy doing. Um, because you know, kind of live and breathe hockey a little bit. Um, I know talking with a couple guys at work today about Letterkenny, and they're not big hockey fans, so I got to explain some of the terminology that gets used on the show that's hockey terminology. And they found it even more amusing after you find out the terminology. So again, I've mentioned it before, but I'll mention it again. Letterkenny's the most Canadian show ever, and yeah, it's pretty awesome. It's like just that corner gas mixed with Trailer Park Boys, and just enough of both to be interesting and entertaining. Now, in terms of current power rankings, there's some movement from last week, but again, I don't pay attention to what my rankings were last week. I don't write them down anywhere, so I can't give you guys a move up or a move down. I just go through, I look at the standings, I look at recent results, I look at which teams are where. I don't care about injuries. I know injuries affect other power rankings on other websites. I don't care because to me, well, what are their results? Well, who cares if this number of guys are hurt? If they're still playing well, they don't need to drop in the power rankings just because they have an injury problem. So, number 30 on the list, and this is pretty easy to do, is the Devils. The Devils are number 30. Um, I don't think any Devils fan is going to argue with me on that one. They right now are the lowest ranked team in the league. They're coming into tonight on a 10-game losing streak, and I honestly I do hope they pull out of it because Jersey's Jersey's been hurting for a while, and it would be nice to see a Jersey team do well. 29 is Colorado. The Avs are playing better than New Jersey. And that's pretty much it. 28. Oh, look at the Red Wings. They have not been playing very well. The Red Wings are full value for that 28th spot right now. 27th is the team without a goaltender, and I am baffled and bewildered at how we got to this point. Dallas has a solid enough roster to be a playoff team. They were first in their division last year. This is an unmitigated disaster. Everybody should be losing their job for this. Ridiculous. 26th overall, I have the Arizona Coyotes, who move up because they're not as bad as these guys. So for the Coyotes, there are reasons to be happy right now, but they're still not making the playoffs. 25th, also not making the playoffs, Vancouver. So Vancouver, by power rankings, have got them ahead of Dallas. Um, but neither team's writing home about the season they've been having this year. Number 24, I have the Winnipeg Jets. For anybody who's going to ask, I did these rankings before tonight's games, obviously. Um, if I worked later in the morning, I'd do rankings after tonight's games, but that's just not going to happen. Number 23. So again, in terms of power rankings, I have the Florida Panthers. Florida is and has been spinning their wheels all season. And regardless of the reason or what we can point fingers at, this is not the result that Florida had wanted. I had said all summer that the idea of tearing your roster apart after they win the division is problematic. You're trying to fix what's not broken, and they overfixed it. It didn't help them that Huberdeau was out for quite a while, too, though. Number 22, I have Buffalo. So the Buffalo Sabres, who are good enough to be ahead of all these teams and not good enough to be a playoff team. This has been their problem. And Ekblad's been better, and he's healthy-ish, and I mean, we'll find out at the end of the year if he still has nagging injuries, but the fact is he's playing relatively well. His points per game are up there. Buffalo's just not a very good team right now. 21. I had expected these guys to be better. I had expected the Kings to be higher. by this point in the season, I had expected the Kings to be flirting with top 10. Picking up Iginla and Bishop, I thought would turn things around, and it really hasn't. So it's been a loss for the Kings. Number 20, Toronto. And at the time that I'm making this, they're ahead of Tampa 1-0. Toronto has fallen out of the playoffs as of when I'm doing this video. So if they're back in the playoffs, they ended tonight. Good for them. But right now, they're out of the playoffs. And one game doesn't necessarily affect where I think a team fits in the power rankings. Number 19, and they've been better. And they haven't played a meaningful game in a while. But I tell you, Carolina has been impressive-ish. Again, this is one of those teams that's on the verge of respectability, and I think they are a candidate, along with the Sabres, for a bounce-back season next year. Number 18, I have the Flyers. They would have been much lower if not for their 4-0 win over Pittsburgh. They've been inconsistent, but again, they're ahead of all these guys. Number 17, they'd be much lower if not for their win over Carolina the other night. Their overtime win over Carolina saved them from bottoming out in about this range here. That win pulls them up to here. And just their overall play has been okay. Number 16, and I'm kind of surprised these guys aren't getting better results, but the results haven't been great. The last 10 games, Rangers are at 500. And while I don't factor injuries into things, Lundqvist being hurt isn't helping the team's fortunes right now. Ronta's a very good goaltender, though, but I still think if you're going to do anything in the playoffs, you want Lundqvist to be there. So they're still a playoff team. It's just there's 15 teams in the league that are hotter than them right now. Remember, power rankings are not telling the story of where a team is in the standings. It is telling you, in terms of momentum, who's standing where right now. This is just a momentum thing. 15, I have the Oilers. And the Oilers are playing relatively well. One game up, one game down, game up, couple games up, game down. Like, it's part of being a young team. That consistency on a young team is hard to find. And now they're really pulling for their veterans to help them get over the hump. This is when Lucic is going to earn his money or, show himself to be a liability. One or the other. At 14, I have Montreal. I just think there's a lot of teams hotter than them right now. And I think Montreal is in danger of falling out of first in their division. And I still think this team needs some work, needs some help. Again, I know this is going to cause consternation among Habs fans, but that's just the way I see it. But part of the reason that I've got them dropping is that a team like St. Louis is moving up. So St. Louis has looked really good lately. Not so good in their last game, but you know what? 5 wins in a row tells me that St. Louis is pretty much ready to secure a playoff spot over the Kings and get themselves into the Western Conference playoffs, and then anything can happen, as these guys proved last year. Nashville's been much better lately, and so they snagged that number 12 spot. And again, I don't know how these match up to last week's rankings, because I don't pay much attention to them, because it's fun not to pay attention to them. Number 11, I have the Ducks. The Ducks are playing better lately, and again, going into the playoffs, I think they're a dark horse. I get asked a lot about who the dark horses are. In the West, it's the Ducks. Nobody expects the Ducks to do anything this year because they've choked so many times in the last few years. So this is probably the year that the Ducks are going to do something in the playoffs. Remember, I am no fan of the Ducks. At number 10, the all of a sudden playoff relevant Tampa Bay Lightning. Tampa have looked really, really good. They're still down 1-0 to the Leafs, but oh god, they're wearing those ugly Bolts jerseys. Why do they still have those ugly Bolts jerseys? Anyways, they're not the Bolts, they're the Lightning, for frick's sake. God, I thought they retired those a long time ago. I see those and they're just horrendous. Okay, number 9, I have the Ottawa Senators. Senators are still hot. even when they lose, they still look good. And I would have a hard time betting against them right now for first place in the division. I think the Senators are probably going to get it. Speaking of getting back on track, Washington Capitals are 8th right now and likely to move higher soon. I know the Caps have been struggling, but they are still ranked number 1 in the NHL, and there's a reason. And for me, the Caps are still one of the best teams in the league. The problem is number 7 is the Penguins. So again, Washington doesn't want to fall in the playoffs and end up playing these guys. And as much as they don't want to play those guys, I don't know that anybody wants to play these guys in the first round. If Minnesota ends up second place in that division, and if Minnesota ends up playing Nashville, it looks like Nashville or St. Louis, Minnesota's going to be so pissed at losing that division. I could see Minnesota and Anaheim being the teams to beat in the West. I could see that. I could see this year in the playoffs being just some wild, crazy season where we don't have a clue who's going to win. Number 5, moving up. I know they were 11 last week because I made a big deal about them being outside the top 10, but I can't justify them being outside the top 10 anymore. They've won 4 in a row, and it's not just that they're winning, it's how they're winning. They look really good right now. Now, they're going into Edmonton tonight, and while Edmonton's 15th, this certainly is not a measurement of how the teams are in terms of their ability or their standings. And with McDavid, the Oilers are always capable of a win, and Boston and Edmonton have a history that's not very kind to Boston. So I keep that in mind whenever they meet each other. Number 4, I have Columbus. Hard to argue Columbus belongs any further down than that. Columbus is a really solid, good, deep team. Their win over Philly was a big statement game the other day. I know Philly's down here, but it's just Columbus needed that statement game, and they got it. Number 3, and I know these guys were number 1 last time I did this ranking, Calgary. It's not the loss to Boston. It's that winning streak was great. It was a 10-game winning streak. It was awesome. But the Flames do have some stuff to work on. They're now in a very good position. They shouldn't have a problem making the playoffs, and they should be able to work towards improving whatever they need to in order to be a threat in the playoffs. Because right now, if they met up with the Ducks, there may be a problem. If they met up with the Oilers, there may be a problem. The Oilers are capable of stomping Calgary. Maybe a different story now that Elliott's playing better, though. That may change. Number 2, Sharks. The Sharks have shown recently that they're giant killers. They have tremendous capability on the ice. Brent Burns gets all the headlines, but there's a lot more going on with San Jose than Brent Burns. And while I can't stand the Sharks almost as much as I can't stand the Ducks, I cannot take away from them that they've been playing some really good hockey lately. So out of the 3 California teams, they are above the other 2 by a distance. And number 1, the Hawks. I said, was it a month ago now, to watch out for the Hawks? And I said before the season, watch out for the Hawks. I was told they're old, they're decaying, they don't have the depth they used to. The Hawks are not the dangerous team that they once were. They are. They have Crawford in net. They have Keith on the blue line with Seabrook. They got Aduya back. They got Campbell back during the offseason last year. They've got Taves. They've got Kane. They've got Hossa. They've got so many weapons. Panarin. They've got so many weapons up front that these guys right now are playing like a team that wants a 4th Stanley Cup for Kane and Taves. They want 4. It's obnoxious, and you shouldn't be allowed to have 4 cups that quickly, but I could see the Hawks getting it. I think the thing for me, this was my Stanley Cup pick at the start of the year, and it looks to be in precariously tough shape. But let me know what your picks are. This is my picks, my opinion. Much like the Jersey video that I posted earlier, this is all my opinion. It's all conjecture. And I'd be interested to know your view on who you think are the best teams in the league right now in terms of momentum. Again, I didn't factor in injuries. I know the Rangers are down here in part due to injuries, but um, again, this can change from week to week, and it likely will. Do I see Boston staying there? Probably not. Do I see Calgary being up there at the end of the year? Probably not. Do I see Pittsburgh moving back up? Yep. Do I see Washington moving back up? Sure. Minnesota finishes top 3? Wouldn't surprise me. There's so much parity. So much. In fact, just one last thing that I'll do here. One last thing that I'll do. Realistically, could win the Stanley Cup. Chicago, San Jose, Calgary, Columbus, probably not. Boston, probably not. Minnesota, sure. Pittsburgh, sure. Washington, yep. Ottawa, Ottawa looks good. I don't see them as a Stanley Cup contender right now. Tampa, absolutely. The Ducks, yep. Nashville, if they got on a run, I'm still not a big fan of some of the parts of the team though. St. Louis, probably not right now. Montreal, they have Carey Price, so I'm always going to put a check next to Montreal. Edmonton has McDavid. McDavid can go on a run. And the Rangers likely have Lundqvist back for the playoffs, and you can't bet against him. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 teams right now in the NHL that I think you could make a realistic argument could win the Stanley Cup this year. And there's other teams that aren't in this conversation, like Columbus, Boston, Calgary, Ottawa. If they're in the playoffs, they could realistically be cup contenders. We're in a crazy time right now where there are so many good teams. They are so tightly packed together, and there's so little to choose between top and bottom in the NHL. Jersey's lost 10 in a row. Are they the worst team in the league? Probably. Are they a horrible team? No, they're not a horrible team. There is no truly horrible team in the NHL. Even Colorado has become better over the last 20 games, especially. They've looked better, and it's just a matter now of Colorado surviving to get to next season and what they do with the pieces they have and who they move or who they don't. So, yeah, those are my power rankings for this week. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're just browsing your way through, and I will talk to y'all again soon.